Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joe Pisapia, and today we've got a fun one for you. Every single year, the running back position gives us some breakout stars that can win you fantasy leagues, and we're going to identify some of those names, where they're being drafted, where they are in the ECR, and of course, make sure you're ready to get all this knowledge dropped on you right here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe right now. We're trying to get to 300,000 subscribers this season. I think we can do it with your help and a little bit of help from my friends here. Jake Ciely from The Athletic joining us as always here. Good to see Jake, but really good to see one of my favorite people in the universe. The godfathers of fantasy football are very few, and this is one of them. One of the heads of the five families here, and a bald brother as well. He's one of the football diehard hosts on Sirius XM Radio. He's a guy working for the Football Guys still too. He's Bob Harris, one of my mentors and good pals. Bob Harris, so great to see you, my friend. And congratulations. I heard a little time off this year for you. Can only imagine you've been spending it all in airports just watching people. Because if you follow Bob on social media, that's what he does.
I have. And it was glorious and delightful. It was the first year of hiatus on Sirius. And I want to say we're going into our 14th year. Wow. And so we've always done, at least a weekly show in the alter season, as I call it. There is no off season. Everyone knows that. But this year we got off. And so the trade-off, though, was you have to work every day when we come back. So if you're a serious listener, I apologize in advance. It will be impossible to miss me 7 days a week, 5 days a week through July and August, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. Monday through Friday. Then once the season starts, add the pregame, add the NFL radio shows on Saturday nights, and you'll probably hear guys like Joe Pisapia and Jake Ciely on there regularly.
I don't know. Jake says you guys don't text anymore. Jake, I blame you personally for that because, a relationship's a two-way street, and Bob always messages me all the time. I send Bob gifts. He comes to visit me. Like, we have a good relationship, but I think you need to put yourself out there a little bit more when it comes to maintaining that relationship with Bob.
Who comments the most on Barkley posts?
That's just like I was going to say that Bob and I actually have a really good Instagram relationship through the DMs. So like we're sliding into each other's DMs. There you go.
Oh, the worst. All right, let's get after it, boys. Let's start to talk about some of these names here on our list. And we're going to start here in our first segment with some RB2s with RB1 potential. And Jake, one of the first guys we're going to talk about is a guy that we've mentioned a few times now. We agree on this. And I think when Jake and I agree on something, everybody should take notice because sometimes we do disagree. But there's certainly a pathway for the first running back we're going to talk about because of who's in front of him, how he performed this year, this past season as well, and the offense that he finds himself now in 2025. His name is Jordan Mason, who is now playing for the Minnesota Vikings. So let's talk about him. His current ECR is RB41. Jake, why do you think Mason could potentially be one of these boons and breakouts of the 2025 season?
Because I think the obvious situation here is everybody's going to say, well, if Aaron Jones gets hurt, Jordan Mason to the moon. But I think there's a world where we could see Jordan Mason take over this backfield, mostly because Aaron Jones getting into that realm where he's not always been supremely volume reliant, but he's been on the cusp. Like he's been very explosive. He's been very good. But some of his best years, as we all know, with the Packers was volume, was touchdown reliant as well. He's never been the best. He's never been the most explosive. He's a really good, like above average, really good above average running back, but he's not elite. It's not like he's going to say, this is his backfield if he's healthy. And I think that's the interesting thing here is that you see Jordan Mason, who had his own concerns coming out of college, but I think you saw some Alfred Morris kind of similarities in that big, strong guy who sometimes takes on a little too much contact. But what we like and what we've seen so far with the 49ers is that he added some of that elusiveness with his athleticism that we would hope he had. He's improved in the passing game, which we had hoped he had. Mm-hmm. And he's been very productive on a per touch basis. And some people might be, well, it's the 49ers to the Shanahan. Right. Where is he going? He's going to the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell. Like, so it's 1-for-1 almost in that aspect where I could see this being a timeshare. And then if Aaron Jones continues to see a little bit of a decline, it would not shock me if this ends up probably no more than a 60-40 split, but where all of a sudden we see Jordan Mason take over.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the potential for him to take over that backfield is real. I don't think enough people are talking about that. The narrative seems to be just about, well, Aaron Jones not holding up. He's 30, all that stuff. And he does have a lot of wear and tear. And I think you started to see that a little bit last year. Real quick, before we get to your name, Bob, any thoughts on Jordan Mason? Is he somebody you're targeting in drafts this season?
Yes, I think, there's a little bit of a premium on him, but if you're building your roster the right way, he is like, he was top 8 in breakaway running rate among 69 backs with 50 carries or more last season. And I'm going to use the silence of the lamb fantasy football theory here. What do we covet? We covet what we see. And the Minnesota Vikings saw Jordan Mason last year. He tore them asunder last year, and the memories are fresh. But I think Cam Akers, Ty Chandler will work behind Jones and combine for 35% of the carries. I think expecting Mason at the baseline to fill that void seems reasonable. Looking at his abilities and skills, I think it'd be huge. You saw Aaron Jones' efficiency drop down the stretch last year. Mm-hmm. He went from like 5 yards to around 4 yards, and like he played all 17 games. He played beat up. He got all kinds of career highs and touches and snaps and whatnot. But again, he is aging. They did pay him, so they still have some expectations. Would they give him $20 million, Aaron Jones, on an extension? So they still have some expectations for him. But Jordan Mason is not there by accident.
I like that. Also, one of the few Silence of the Lambs references we've had this year. So make sure you draft
him. Might be the first one I ever heard.
And the nice
we covet what we see.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a classic, man. You know, that movie still holds up. I think I saw it last year for the first time in a while. Still holds up, man. Still A+. All right, let's get to one on Bob's list here of the RB2s that could end up becoming RB1s. This is a guy in Chuba Hubbard that is currently around the ECR of RB18 that I feel like people just kind of take for granted and forget about. And another one that got paid and, again, seems to have the pathway yet again in 2025 to success, Bob.
Yeah, they added Rico Dowdle to fill the Miles Sanders role. That'll be fine. Miles Sanders will tell you that he wasn't especially busy there, and he'll move on to Dallas and have a good time. I think the thing about Hubbard is this is the Dave Canales plan, right? This is how you fix a quarterback. Short of the middle of the offensive line, you run the football, your quarterback gets better. It's magical. It works everywhere he goes. And it worked here, and I think we'll see a similar thing last year. I know Jonathan Brooks, injury kind of a fortuitous circumstance, right? When good things happen, good players step up and get them. When we saw Hubbard, career highs in attempts, yards, touchdowns, receptions. He had another score receiving, so that's 11 scores. He was running back 13 on a per-game basis with 16.5 points. This, to me, is like close enough that if he gets in the full season, this offense rounds out a little better. Bryce Young becomes more effective. Guess what? Bryce Young was quarterback 6 down the stretch last year from week 12 on. Adding a little danger in the passing attack would open things up more for Chuba Hubbard. So I think this is a guy that's ideally situated to exceed his current ECR.
Yeah, last year, 10 rushing touchdowns for Chuba Hubbard, 250 attempts. He did miss the last couple games of the season, Jake, but I feel like in some ways, you can, there was certainly enough in 2024 to go on where you feel confident that basically we're running it back in Carolina with Chuba Hubbard, yet the ECR, the ADP are all pretty suppressed still.
Oh, they completely are. And I think part of it is perception of what Chuba Hubbard was before this. And I'll include myself in that. I wildly got Chuba Hubbard wrong. Like I just thought he was a replacement level running back. And I thought that was the biggest thing is that Jonathan Brooks, I'm speaking to last year, right? Even if it took him till December to get to 100%, I'm like, as soon as he's 100%, this is Jonathan Brooks backfield. And I didn't give Hubbard the respect deserved. And I think that it's interesting this year is like Miles Sanders gone. I mean, you look at this backfield, like, okay, Rico Dowdle, like we've seen Rico Dowdle be the lead, and I don't think he's a serious threat to Hubbard, given what we've seen Dowdle as the lead. Trevor Etienne, I was higher than most on him as a rookie, but even so, I don't think he's a serious threat. And I think you're looking at the chance here where one thing that, Bob talked about with Canales in this offense is that they kind of lean on one running back. Like other guys get sprinkled in, but this isn't going to turn into a timeshare committee situation where we need to be worried. So I think that Chuba Hubbard is definitively, I'm with him. I think he's in play to finish as a back end RB1.
Throw in a little anecdote, Joe. Just talk to Mike Kay from, I think the Charlotte Observer these days. Last year during the season, just kind of said, man, is this Chuba thing going to wear down? He said, man, the coaches talk about him all the time. They love the violent rushing style. He's ideally suited to what they want to do. I think I don't see there being any changes. And the other thing people forget, he's got some wheels. He was a track guy, Canadian track star.
He had a great college career. That was the point I was just going to make too, is like, I think we forget he was really productive in college, but people, I think, looked at him and said, well, I don't know if that's going to translate to the NFL, but you're right, Bob. I mean, he does have wheels. He clearly is endearing himself to the coaching staff. I wonder also, guys, if it's a bit of the perception of the Panthers. I mean, they've just been so bad for so long that we just kind of discount them. But if you were paying attention, especially in the last 7 weeks of last season, this was a team that covered a lot of games, that pushed a lot of good teams to their brink, almost pulled off a couple upsets too. And Canales might just be a genius. Anybody who could fix Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, and then Bryce Young in 3 years in a row. I mean, seriously, where's the coach of the year?
Don't forget the offensive line.
And the offensive line. Like, I mean, he's just
shoring up
left
the middle.
His imprint.
Yeah, shoring up the middle was a big deal. But also, like, I mean, when you saw the Kansas City game, I want to say last year, when there came a moment where Bryce Young magically became the thing he was drafted as. Oh, look, a quick processor, a guy who can beat the blitz, and and all the things we heard and never saw as a rookie or the first half of the season prior to his benching in favor of Andy Dalton. So I do think we want to avoid these bad offenses. I tell everybody, don't avoid bad offenses. Just don't drill deep into them.
Right. Don't base your team on them. This is what I talk about in the Black Book all the time. Right. In the ecosystem, in the Black Book, that whole concept is invest in building blocks of your roster should be in good offenses as much as you can. But it doesn't mean you can't ignore value. And I think we all agree Hubbard is definitely a value on there. Let's get to some more names on our list. Before we do, a quick reminder to everybody, it's officially the best time of year if you're a Hoops fan, because there's playoff drama, there's buzzer beaters, and a lot of chaos to be chasing. And you got to check out right now Pick 6 from DraftKings if you want to get in and win some cash. Nobody's dropping better payouts than Pick 6. Hit 6 is right now out there for you. You can win 25 times your cash, and you can beat your competition by simply just going and making the right selections. It's super simple. Select your picks, track your score, and go for those big time prizes. No gimmicks, just straight up fun, just like the podcast. And the playoffs are on right now, so why not take a shot at making some money while you're watching right now, the NBA. So download the DraftKings Pick 6 app today and use that promo code FantasyPros. That's code FantasyPros. Pay just $5 right now. Get $50 in bonus picks. Better payouts, bigger wins. Only on Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Jake Ciely, next running back to talk about on your list here in the RB2s that could end up as RB1s, is Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
Now, I'm rooting for it, but you got to sell me on this one. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to sell you on it, because I just did a show earlier this week with Fitz, and we lamented about the fact that Pacheco might just not even happen this year. But we're talking about potentials here. That doesn't necessarily mean I believe 100%, but I can give you the scenario of how it happens, and that's why Pacheco's here. It really comes down to the Pacheco last year we saw isn't Pacheco. Like, that just came back from injury.
Sure.
Never got back to 100%. And he wouldn't be the first running back to do this. Of course, the downside is, what if we go down the Javonte Williams route and he isn't the same ever again? There is certainly risk here. I'm a fan of Brashard Smith. I think that he could be the Jerick McKinnon in this offense. Like, there is risk that this is a full-blown committee and Kareem Hunt's still involved, and we're just going down and banging our heads against the wall.
I think I just threw up in my mouth a little when you said all that. I want to tell you. So.
The upside here is if Pacheco looks anything like he did 2 years ago, if Pacheco just gets a little chipped in the passing game, and what the biggest value here is touchdown equity. He's in the Chiefs offense, and that was part of his value 2 years ago. And if he gets 240, 250 carries, and he's the goal line option, and Kareem Hunt's a non-factor, and that fall off that we saw with the Browns shows back up with the Chiefs, and he's a non-factor, and this is all Pacheco getting the majority of the touches with a little bit of Smith sprinkled in, then he's going to be an RB1. It's going to be touchdown reliant. It'll probably be 1,100 yards, not 1,600. But there's a world where it comes into play, and I would be out on Pacheco if he was RB16. But at RB26, I'm willing to take that chance that, hey, maybe he's back.
And I think that is the bigger meta point here for everybody. And Jake makes a very cogent argument and a path for him to reach that success. The question is it at the right cost? Jake thinks so. Curious, Bob, do you believe so at RB26, which is about that range on the ECR and fantasypros.com?
4 other numbers: 216, 4.37. His weight and his current speed, he says, harkening back to his combine days. Also, 15 and 19. His carries week 1 last year, 15 carries in week 2, 19 carries. This seems to be the desired outcome. We've seen guys break their leg before and take a little while to come back around. Tony Pollard would like you to know it might take a whole year, or at least 9 or months or so coming back from a similar injury. So we'll see. He clearly wasn't the guy, Pacheco, coming off that injury late last season, but the Chiefs knew it, and they treated him like that. They didn't give him 5 carries in the playoffs in any game. So I think the efficiency's there. Smith is a concern. Brett Veach would like you to know that he can draft late round running backs, Pacheco being one example. So there's that, but I'm kind of with Jake. I think at cost, this seems really reasonable for guys. And look, I think we're all drafting the Kansas City Chiefs as though they are no longer going to run the football. They are only going to throw the football. They're only going to be deep passes. And all of the guys that we love in that receiving core and Patrick Mahomes are going to drive this offense. We'll see.
In 3 years, the next guy Bob's going to talk about has yet to finish as an RB1. He is being drafted, or ECR looking at him, is around RB15. So he's right outside of that group. It's Ken Walker, who has dealt with his share of injuries over the last couple of years. But Bob, 2025, we're in the year 4 of Walker. Why could it potentially be different?
Well, I'm not actually drafting Kenneth Walker. I'm drafting Clint Kubiak, and the offensive coordinator in Seattle, who, like, the scheme really favors him. Walker missed 6 games last year. He averaged 16.5 points per game. That was 12th among running backs. So we've tasted the running back one range. Finishes running back 27 overall, I think. And the draft price is right. Seattle finished like 28th in running last year. I think the big complaint about him has been his tendency to be a home run hitter, but he does run those outside zone plays well. You heard Clint Kubiak talking lovingly about him. And again, when the number after the 4 in the 40 time is a 3, and for the running back position, the coaches get a little bit weird about it. And so I would say that's the thing. Zach Charbonnet's still around, but the split wasn't close when both of them played. 11 games together, Walker had 68% of the carries, 14% of the targets compared to Charbonnet's 19% and 8%. Charbonnet had 6.5 fantasy points in those weeks. So as long as Walker's in the locked and upright position, I think his opportunities will be there. The offensive scheme will favor him. They actually worked on the offensive line this year. Imagine that. Big change for John Schneider. No, offensive tackles don't grow on trees. You have to get them and develop them, sir. And so hopefully all those things come together to put together a great season for Mr. Kenneth Walker III.
Damian Martinez was also drafted this year at the running back position by them too. Low key, kind of like him too, is like a deeper league stash kind of guy. Jake, do you have any thoughts on Ken Walker this year? A frustrating guy because you hate when guys miss time, and he's been one to miss time or struggle with injuries. There's no doubt that when he's on the field and at his best, he's certainly a guy that I think is tempting from a fantasy perspective. But what's your perspective?
My perspective is I wanted to end the podcast because I love Bob and I don't want to disagree with him. So
disagree. This is fun. He doesn't text you now anyway. So what's the problem?
That is true. That is true.
Are you going to ruin your great relationship over the last couple of years when you've gone silent, gone dark on each other?
I will admit, maybe I'll just never get the Seahawks backfield right. But really what it comes down to is, and people know this in the comments because they came for me weeks ago, and I said, to clarify the conversation we were having at the time, it was Swift versus Walker. And I thought Swift floor. I know Swift is going to check in as RB18. And I even said, if you want somebody who can finish RB1, that isn't Swift. That is Kenneth Walker. My biggest issue with Kenneth Walker is that I actually thought, this is another one where I wasn't 100% right. I actually thought Charbonnet might struggle being the guy last year when it happened, and he didn't. And it opened my eyes. And now I go into this season, nothing what Bob said is wrong, especially about Kubiak. Pre-snap motion is going to help. I'm thinking more to the Vikings, and I think Charbonnet fits a little bit better with Sam Darnold, just in my opinion. And I was impressed at what Charbonnet did last year, where I don't think we're getting away from the timeshare unlike we used to, because Bob's right. When they were both healthy, it was Walker. My fear is just that that's not a thing anymore because of the injuries, because of how good Charbonnet has proven to be, that we are looking at kind of a Pittsburgh Steelers situation. And that's where I'll bring Pacheco into the conversation. If Walker was going right with Pacheco, I'll take Walker every single time. My issue with Walker is the RB15 cost. If you put a 2 in front of that cost, all day long, sign me up. It's the issue is that it's the RB15.
I think that's a fair assessment. I'll tell you what, of all the 4 guys we talked about so far, the most shares I'm going to have of any of them is going to be Chuba Hubbard. I'm just going right in head first on that one. I think that's a good return on investment. If he's RB 18 currently, right, or somewhere in that range, that works for me because I know he's the guy. I know they're going to run the football, and he already showed me what he could do last year. And they paid him. Follow the money. Always follow the money. Let's follow this show along to some sophomore guys. Every year we get very excited about rookies, but they don't always necessarily pop off in year 1. It's true at the wide receiver position, but often true at the running back position too. You got to kind of garner the favor of the coaching staff to a certain degree. Sophomore breakouts. Bob, let's start with you, somebody who is a year 2 guy who we could see pop off in 2025.
So I think like all these guys, you have to be counting on an injury, right? So and I like Jake's guy. We'll talk about him in a minute. Probably would have been my first choice, but I'm going to go with the guy who's in the right offense if somebody gets hurt. I do not like to speak these things into existence, and I apologize in advance, Christian McCaffrey investors, because I do think, I mean, look, Christian McCaffrey's already back up in the first round. It's just like nothing ever happened. Like zoop, the neuralizers have all come
mind
out.
Trick, I swear, it really is.
The neuralizers.
And you know how much heat we took last year when I kept saying, he had 417 touches last year. That really makes me uneasy about taking him as a first overall, and I got dragged everywhere.
I'll take him at the end of the first round this year. So that's
the first round, I'll take him.
I think that's where he's going.
That's
right
tempting.
Now.
Okay, now. But to Bob's point, Jake, and I know, when if it's the 19th of June as of recording this, when it's the 19th of August, Christian McCaffrey is going to be a top 10 player because people are just going to look at the upside as long as everything looks good in the preseason. If not higher, who knows?
I've already seen people ranking him as their number one running back already. I mean, the cuffs are off, right? Like
I won't go that far. I'm at 4. I don't think you can make the argument over Barkley, Bijan, and Gibbs. They don't have the risk.
Well, historically speaking, you can make it over Barkley when you look at the data of 400 plus carries in the season, and then the next year you can absolutely make that one over Barkley. And again, no one's going to want to hear that either. But it's all true.
Just dovetailed into this.
Well, look, from the guy who loves DuckTales, you don't want to call it a ducktail. We just ducktailed. That's what
I didn't come on this program for all the Derrick Henry slander that I'm dealing with here.
Well, I will always be the defender of Derrick Henry with you every single year, no matter what. But let's talk more about Guerendo because this is a player that God, put it away, Jake. This is definitely, though, I think the guy that if you're looking to speculate late on a huge upside, it's Guerendo.
I think there's two. Like it's Guerendo or Will Shipley. And I think at least Guerendo, I've seen a little taste of it. And there's, I know there's another, who's it? James Jordan's there. And A.J. Dillon's in Philadelphia, though. So who knows? I mean, funny thing, I'm not standing for A.J. Dillon anymore. But Will Shipley seems a little less certain to me. But those are the two guys. I mean, I don't have the same feeling about Jalen Wright, although I think he would get a pretty good workload in Miami if something were to happen. Blake Corum, maybe he would. Maybe Hunter would. Chuckus Hunter. So I think Isaac Guerendo's in a good spot because we've seen him in that spot, right? Mm-hmm. When Jordan Mason was hurt last year, Guerendo got his turn. And if he can stay in the locked and upright position, he has that kind of high-end speed. He's really good in the scheme in terms of rushing, similar to what Jordan Mason did just as a runner, except maybe a little bigger. So I'm on board with that. But I hate being in a position to have to pick a guy because somebody ahead of him is going to get hurt. But that's part of this game. And when I'm out there drafting in best balls, that's one of the things I'm doing. I have a lot of shares of Guerendo. I have a lot of shares of Shipley too. They're way cheaper. But if there's a similar path to workload or some path to workload in that Philadelphia offense, I'd like that. But this is about a guy with a possible path to workload and a potent offense. And for me, Guerendo works just fine.
I want to say with my last or second to last pick last year in Flex League in New York, Jake, when we were drafting together, I took Mason. And I was like, I'm just taking him now because I'm just going to do it. And that's usually an early draft. Usually it's early August we do that. And I was just waiting, and I'm just like, I'm just taking him. So I don't have to spend any fab on him. The first month of the season, little did I know it was the first week of the season.
But Jake makes me stay at home and do the online version.
Yeah,
makes me.
Yeah, well, there's an opening in New York this year,
from
Bob.
year one.
I was.
Bob, there's an opening in New York, I think, this year.
I was invited from year.
All right, so Guerendo's a guy I think we can all agree on is a good speculative add for sure and stash at the bottom of your bench because, again, you saw it last year in the offense, and it's a good offense for running backs in terms of scoring. So, Jake, give me a name, sophomore breakout potentially in year 2 you have your eye on.
Yeah, I even tried to be nice. I actually left Ray Davis out there for Bob, because I talked about him on the other show too, and I was like, that feels like the kind of the layup one. But I think
Braelon Allen all in the mix, all those guys.
Yeah. I know, but I'll go with Trey Benson. Bob alluded to it earlier. And again, we are looking at injury. Well, who's somebody who has played a full season to his career? James Conner actually got the closest he's gotten yet last year, surprisingly. But Trey Benson also got hurt. But the excitement that we had for Trey Benson last year, heck, we can throw a lot of these names. The excitement we had for Ray Davis, the excitement we had for Jalen Wright. They're all most of them are walking into situations now where they are likely the number 2s behind situations that are either appealing or with somebody who is a high injury risk. And I think that if you look at Benson, he's got both going for him. He's somebody that I thought was a top 5 running back in last year's draft class. I think if James Conner gets hurt, he has the ability to not only step in, but step in as that bell cow for the Cardinals, which seems to be what they do most often. And I think that Conner is a dicey pick every single year. The good thing about it is that because of their cost, because Benson's all the way down at 46 and Connor's not going as what he just did again last year. When he's on the field, fringe RB1 numbers year in and year out. It's the question of how long is he going to be on the field. You can actually get Connor and Benson. Like if you want to be a team that does handcuff your own running backs, the cost of those two together is not prohibitive at all. And I think that's what really makes Benson appealing, more so because of the cost for Cook and Davis. This one's more appealing and costs less.
Yeah, Connor's coming off a career year, RB19 currently on Fantasy Pros. Bob, what do you think of Benson? I remember last year, LaDainian Tomlinson said that was his favorite running back in the draft. And I kind of perked my ears and stuck in my brain for some reason, because one of the great running backs of all time says, this is my favorite guy. I want to say, okay, well, I want to watch him and make sure that I'm monitoring where he might end up and how he's going to play in the NFL. Last year was a disappointment, no doubt. Could we see a different version of it this year?
Yeah, I'm a simple man. I'll go with the old coaching cliche. There are two things you can't coach: size and speed. Trey Benson has both of those, right? He's big, he's fast, got a lot of power. He's in a good situation in an offense that will lean on him if something happens. So I think this is a great call. Like I think so many of these year two running backs are, prime for great things if something goes wrong. James Conner, predicting bad things for James Conner, not predicting them or expecting them. That's been the norm now every single year for everybody since he showed up in Arizona, and he keeps proving us wrong. And as Jake said, puts up sterling numbers while he's on the field. But, Father Time is undefeated unless he's going up against Derrick Henry.
I don't know, Bob. You look
Bob
pretty
Harris.
good in terms of Father Time. I think you're fighting him pretty good. By the way, if you want all the Ray Davis coverage, go back and watch. It was the show we did with Alfredo
last
right?
week. Yeah.
So go back and watch that on the YouTube channel. Nothing but Ray Davis for 45 minutes, pretty much. Before we get to some sleepers and some rookies, just a quick shout out to reminder, sync your leagues for free at Fantasy Pros. Use the tools, including Draft Intel, that's going to show you, check this out, how your league mates actually draft every single year. And Draft Intel is so cool. It will actually build robots based upon the tendencies of your league mates using the league history when you sync your league for free at fantasypros.com with our tools. And when you sync, you could basically run mock draft simulations against, your version of Robot Bob Harris or Robot Jake Ciely, who you're playing against. It's incredible. If you want to talk about really preparing, up to 5 years of real data it will take on. And you can find out which team fades wide receiver, who likes to go early QB. That way you're prepared for your draft, not some theoretical draft. So one of the great breakthroughs we've had in our technology here at Fantasy Pros the last couple of years is Draft Intel. And a lot of people still don't even know about it. So if you want to prepare the right way for your draft, fantasypros.com/intel. Again, that's the place to draft smarter, not harder. Check it out today. And let's check out some of those sleepers we've got too, and some rookies. We know the big rookies, right? We know that Dashan Genty's going to go in the first round, and we know Dravion Henderson and Caleb Johnson and blah, 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 Murray and Hampton. Let's talk about some other guys. Jake, let's start with Jaydon Blue, RB56. Who the hell is the running back for the Dallas Cowboys this year? That's a good question to ask.
I think it's a big question. I think everybody's trying to answer it, but I don't necessarily think that there has to be only one. And if Jaydon Blue is the best option and the best value, I don't think that means he's touching the ball 270 times. That's not who Jaydon Blue is. Honestly, I think there are legitimate concerns about him between the tackles and in pass protection, because look at who Jaydon Blue is. That you don't expect him to hold up to that. But all that being said, is the comparison I made in pre-draft, I think, is what should intrigue people. Is remember Tariq Cohen? How about Tariq Cohen 2 years in a row in fantasy? And that's the ceiling, top 20 ceiling. Now, is that a likelihood? Now, Tariq Cohen only did it for 2 years, and actually that one season of being inside the top 20. The other year, he was more of an RB3. But all that being said, that's not something you count on being a guarantee. That's not something you count on being the next 5 years of his career. But in the right situation, and when you look at this offense and you're looking for a pass catcher in that backfield, I know Javonte Williams is very good as a pass catcher as well, but there's still questions on what's left in this body because he hasn't shown to get back to 100%. I mean, you can make the argument he might not even still be 90% pre-injury at this point. And then the rest of the forget the roster. It's really Javonte Williams. Is he going to be a thorn in the side of Blue? And even if he is, Blue can still get to 180 touches. And I think 180 touches is really all I'm asking for Jaydon Blue. And he'll be an RB3, if not more, in a half and full point PPR.
Turpin's probably their kick returner, right? I know they've changed the kick return rules. So like if he had that Tariq Cohen kick return stuff in there, and maybe he becomes even more intriguing, but I don't know if he's going to get that gig necessarily. Bob, Jaydon Blue is one on Jake's board to talk about. You're going to talk about one of my favorites. Good thing Scott Bogman's not here too, because the show would be 3 hours if we kept talking about Skattebo, because it's fun. I just see him being that lunch pail blue collar big blue guy that the crowd, that first pop he gives some linebacker and runs him down, like the crowd's going to lose their mind. And I just think he's going to become a phenomenon, and he's going to just grow and grow. And I don't know how long the folklore is going to last, but I kind of want to be in for the ride, at least right now when it starts.
Yeah, we all have seen Tyrone Tracy Jr. and God bless him, he is what he is, right? I think.
Did you just bless his heart to Tyrone Tracy?
I blessed his heart.
He is
a converted receiver who does not catch the ball well. We saw why he was a converted receiver last year. Nothing else. Look, and Devin Singletary's there too. But according to Pro Football Focus, the Giants are in the fourth fewest rushing yards from their running backs at 1,307 yards. The third fewest first downs at 64. One of the problems has been the offensive line. 4/5 of the line had PFF run blocking grades of 67 or lower last season. For the record, that's not good. Also, Skattebo is the guy who is used to running behind poor offensive lines. Sorry, Sun Devils, you guys sucked. So there's a little said a Tucson native, the Arizona fan comes out in me at some point. But he's great. He was one of the best running backs last year at non-perfectly blocked runs, and one of the best at converting first downs. 2 weaknesses of the Giants last year, and something that'll help them out greatly this year. So I'm not averse to taking a chance on that young man.
Jake used to be a Giants fan. Got any thoughts on Skattebo?
I like him a lot. I mean, people are coming for me in the comments already thinking that he's going to lead this backfield. I just think the pass catching is underrated because everybody just sees this beast of a man. You watch UFC. He's the guy, if anybody's ever watched UFC where they get choked out and he immediately gets up and starts to just start tackling. That's Skattebo on every play. He just doesn't stop. It's like, dude, it's over. The play is done. He's like, no, I'm still going to run through a brick wall. Like, that's Skattebo, but he can also catch the ball. That's why he's so appealing.
I think that's the underrated part too.
He's a great athlete and he's a great competitor. And I understand, like, okay, you question his size, you question all those things, but anybody who watched that game against Texas in the college football playoffs, I mean, how many players from Texas ended up on NFL rosters in this draft, right? I mean, he's competing against the best of the best right there, and he is taking it to them. And I just think that's what he's going to do. And they need that edge. This team has lacked toughness in the last couple of years for sure. He's an important piece for this team if they're going to show any signs of life and keep this regime of head coach and general manager intact. Let's go to another guy. Actually, let's stay in New York for another running back here, Jake. The next guy on your list is Braelon Allen, who is RB 52, and he showed you some moments as well. The last coaching staff really loved him, but it's a new coaching staff. The question is, does Aaron Glenn love him enough?
I think there's going to be an open door here. We've already seen the rumors, and this isn't even basing off the fact like, Breece Hall is going to get traded. How many times does this happen at this point of the year? Maybe it does. Even if it doesn't, the reason I'm looking at Allen, and that's just coming from somebody that was a fan of his last year. So let me make that clear. Like, actually similar to Skattebo, I think some of his pass catching ability is underrated. Like, because of perception of where he came from in college and the offense that he came from in college is like, I can't pass catch because nobody from that school can ever catch the ball. But I look at Allen and I think he's got the power. And that's where I go with this, is that if you look at Justin Fields' best seasons, doesn't throw to his running back a lot. And the one that was productive the most is somebody that he could turn to also at the goal line. Like, hey, Justin Fields had them thinking they're going to turn it outside, and he just hands it up, boom, up the middle, and they don't have time to react. Well, that's Braelon Allen. Now, I'm saying that Breece Hall can't do it. I'm just saying there's a world where, we're digging down deep for potential surprises, that even if Breece Hall still holds his lead, but now it's all of a sudden in a 45-50% lead, which has often been the case in the Justin Fields offense. Is a mix of running backs, even back with the Bears, is I want the one that they're probably going to turn to for those rushing touchdowns alongside Fields. And I just feel like Allen fits better with Fields than Hall does, just because part of Hall's game is how good he is as a receiving running back. And that's not what Justin Fields does. I think that's why they're thinking about trading him, is because Hall doesn't match well with Fields.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take and a good observation. I don't want to give you too many compliments, so Bob, I want your take on Braelon Allen.
I think the Hall mystery is the issue for me right there. I think Jake made a pretty convincing case. By the way, I want to go back to his Jaydon Blue pick because that gives me a chance to use I've used the silence of the lamb theory. I want to go with my Sesame Street theory. One of these things is not like the other. And Jaydon Blue fits
pretty
that
wide range, Bob. Today on the show, just saying.
Jaydon Blue, the smaller, shiftier, faster. I mean, Javonte Williams, not known for his speed. Miles Sanders, not either. So I like the blue, and I like, Braelon Allen. I don't, I'm not sold on this one. I'll admit, I still think Hall has another year, but I'll give Jake his credit is due. I like his theory.
I like Allen in Dynasty right now. He's the Dynasty guy that I want to buy in that backfield. I feel like Maybe next year you might see that change over. But we'll see how it goes. Let's go to one more running back for Bob on his list of rookies/sleepers, and Bhayshul Tuten at 49 certainly rung the bell at the combine. He's got some guys in front of him in this backfield, but ETN certainly coming off a disappointing season for all of us that had shares, and this could be his final song there. It's really tough too because his trade value is kind of just nil at this point, right? Like, give it to the Jaguars, man. They find a way to take a bad situation and always somehow make it worse and more untenable, and they can't get out of it. Like, they always just find a way. They have a knack for it. So, what's the path here for Tuten in 2025?
The path for Tuten is his big playability. This seems to be what the Jaguars under Liam Cohen and James Gladstone are looking for. You look at the receiving core, whether it's Brian Thomas, 18 catches of 20 yards or more, 7 catches of 40 or more yards. Travis Hunter, huge big play threat. Bhayshul Tuten, 5 runs of 40 or more yards at Virginia Tech last year, 14 runs of 25 or more yards in his 2 seasons there. I think that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that big playability. They want to be an explosive unit. Again, the metrics at the combine, very appealing to me, Bob Harris. That 3 after the 4 and the 2 after that. I mean, like, pretty remarkable, fastest running back at the combine. Not a small guy either, has some bulk to him. So I think he can carry the full workload. But like, he's in that same range of players. Like, there's a mix of players. It's Travis Etienne, it's Javonte Williams, it's Jaydon Blue, and Bhayshul Tuten are all kind of in that same range. And I probably have shares of all of them on the hope that one of them hits. But if I miss on some that I prefer, I'm perfectly happy taking the others. I think Tuten falls in that line, but I do think there's a potential path for workload in that big playability and just the kind of lackluster. What we see, like ETN was running back 38 last year, and Bigsby was 39. I mean, they were pretty mundane. So I think that's the thing working the most in Tuten's favor.
Jake, what's your take on the Jacksonville backfill?
Mine is, I think Bigsby is the one we don't need to worry about, which probably means he'll just be the best. And then we'll go really chasing him on waiver wires. I really think it does come down to ETN and Tuten. And I've been one that's been more so on ETN. Not that I don't like Tuten. I just think that the fantasy community has been, since the draft, like, his value just like skyrocketed. And people are just like, oh my gosh. And it's the opportunity of being with Cohen and being the lead. That's in play. And at 49, I'm fine with it. It was the immediate reaction after the draft that I was kind of pushing back on, because nothing Bob said is wrong here. My concern is that now I'm not saying he's Jaydon Blue, because you just said he's not. He's actually got some bulk to him. But what if he's only used in that facet? The ball security issues are real. You think a first-time head coach is going to want to put his neck on the line for, granted, he drafted him, but if he's putting the ball on the ground, putting the ball on the Chiron Tracy, he's going to get frustrated. So I think there's a path to ETN being the lead. I also think there's a path to Tuten being the lead, but what Bob kind of said there too, and kind of like, I'm kind of pulling out what he said, is like, both of them at their cost are worth gambling on, because in that case, you're at least getting the one that likely hits, because they're both cheap right now.
Yeah. And look, this is an important show for everybody out there like me, who is a heavy wide receiver drafter early, because these are the names you're going to have to find to make up ground at the running back position. The Chuba Hubbards, the Ray Davises, even though we didn't get into him in this show, but the guys like Trey Benson, guys like Skattebo, like, you've got to take shots and you've got to buy in bulk if you're going to be a heavy wide receiver drafter, or if you're going to take a Brock Bowers, with your second pick or something like that, you want to go that route in tight end, you have to make up running back, because the elite guys are going to be off the board by the time it comes back around to you. So this is a very important exercise, and it's so important that I want to go even deeper, gentlemen. I want to go with a bold call, something kind of out of the blue. Let's try to see if we can find a guy that might be a super sleeper potentially in 2025. Let's start with you, Bob Harris, because when this guy recently signed, I have to say, I had a little bit of a chill go down my spine. All the RJ Harvey love that Derek Brown was just feeding me. Now, all of a sudden, I have pause with J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins can play, right? We saw it last year. We all know what the drawbacks are for J.K. Dobbins. He must stay on the field. But I think we've seen in Sean Payton offenses where 2 running backs can be successful. The 1A, 1B model is fully in play. I don't know that RJ Harvey is, necessarily the kind of receiving asset we've seen him use in the past as a 1B. But I do think, and my colleague Cecil Lammy at Football Guys, who also covers the Broncos on a daily basis, his take was from the first minute, it's pretty well connected, is that Dobbins is there to be the 1A and that Harvey will be the 1B. based on that alone and the price, I think you put those two things together and you're saying, wow, I think I'll try that, please. And I've been fortunate in a number of my ongoing best ball drafts to get that fortuitous draft timing where something happens and you can make that pick. I'll have a number of shares of him at the right price. The price is going to rise, people. So if you do want to get in on the cheap end, you better be drafted now. Because I think by the time we get into August and people start realizing what the roles are going to be, assuming they work out like Lambie says, I think there'll be a lot of people in on J.K. Dobbins.
Jake, the Denver Broncos backfield right now is I know Bob has said, we've seen Sean Payton in the past make these, both running backs fantasy relevant. That was in New Orleans. It was Alvin Kamara and Ingram. It was a kind of different situation here. I don't think this is quite that level of talent and or scenario here. So to me, this went from a backfield that I was really curious in with Harvey kind of looking like the guy to now that Dobbins is in there, to me going, well, maybe I could just take a flyer on Dobbins late and see what he does. And if it doesn't work out, I could even cut him. But all of a sudden, my excitement level is kind of dimmed a little bit. Yeah, waning, whatever you want to say. Where's your excitement level here with this Denver Broncos situation now that Dobbins is in the mix?
It's flat, and I'm happy about it because this. We just talked a few weeks ago. I was the one everybody hated because I was like, chill out on RJ Harvey, like chill out. And it just came down to, it was kind of similar to the Tuten, but a completely different aspect is I love Harvey with Sean Payton. I think Sean Payton is building his new Saints, but it's new Saints. He's not Alvin Kamara. Is he 90% Alvin Kamara? Yeah, probably. But that also means he's not going to be as productive as Alvin Kamara, probably not trusted as much. And you saw this with the signing. So before the signing, I was like, yeah, I want RJ Harvey, just not where he's going. I'm not drafting him as the second rookie running back off the board. I'm not drafting him as an RB2.
No, that's crazy.
Does he have that upside? Sure. Does he still have that upside? Yeah, but it's looking a little bit more dicey now as everything Bob just said. And again, Cecil Lammey, I've been following him for years, very tied into this team. I think if even it's a 50-50 split, you wouldn't be shocked to say that RV is even more productive on a per touch basis at this point of Dobbins' career. But that 50-50 split with still Cortland Sutton down the list of the Joker role for Evan Ingram and everything like this is like, how many touches is the 50-50 split going to equal? It's not going to be the 250 people were thinking Harvey might get. So that's why I'm actually glad this is pulling him down because now I'll be willing to dive into Harvey. But I'm also, it's funny how many of these running backs I'm willing to invest in both, at least as of right now. Given Dobbins' price, I'm definitely investing in Dobbins.
Right. I mean, like I'm not going to pretend to Alvin Kamara, but like late Saints career Mark Ingram. I mean, like the role. I mean, I'm more interested in the role than the talent, but also last year, and it's a pretty good offensive line in Los Angeles, or a serviceable offensive line. And we saw Dobbins to have some big games where he tore off some big runs. So I think if the opportunities come, he still can be an explosive threat. I don't think the injuries have drained him completely of that. So right. I think that, but I think you guys are both right. I mean, it's just right now it's all about the price. If that price rises, I'll be looking for other pieces, maybe the one Jake's talking about.
Yeah, and look, Dobbins will be another year removed from knee surgery, right? Too. So that's right. Another thing too. Like the further you get away, all the doctors will tell you that the stronger typically the guy is. But I gotta say, in those half-point PPR leagues where I'm chasing touchdowns, I want Dobbins. Like that's where I want, and the standard leagues obviously as well. Jake, give us your bold call, guy. Who is it?
Yeah, like since 2021. We're talking about running backs that don't play the full season. Jonathan Taylor has not played a full season since 2021. It's actually getting concerning at this point. So much so the fact that every single year people are like, I care about Marlon Mack. I care about Zach Moss and Deion Jackson and all these other jabronis behind them. They actually have a serious threat that I think that as much as somebody that was a Khalil Herbert fan for the potential that he might bring with the Bears and never really produced it, I don't know that Khalil Herbert's definitively the number 2 behind Jonathan Taylor. And I think it might be DJ Giddens because, and this is coming from my comparison for DJ Giddens, I think he's got some David Montgomery to his game. And if you're talking about somebody who could step in similarly, and no, I'm not calling him Jonathan Taylor, and I'm not even calling Giddens David Montgomery as of today, but we've seen Khalil Herbert. If you told me David Montgomery was the backup for Jonathan Taylor, we would be going, this would be like draft D'Angelo Williams in the 6th round behind Le'Veon Bell because we know it's going to be RB1 production if anything were to happen. And I think at this point, it would be a shock if Jonathan Taylor played 16 games at this point, especially the workload they continue to give him when he is out there because they give him 25 touches a game. And I don't care whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, he's going to be a risk. So if I'm looking for super deep sleeper bold call, I'm going to say Giddens wins the number 2 role and that the games he's playing is going to be putting up RB2 numbers.
There you have it, everybody. Those are some names at the running back position that could break out from all the different categories. We got rookies, we got sleepers, we got bold late prediction takes, and even some guys in the RB2 range that could end up in RB1s. But we love to hear from you. Drop your comments below. Tell us your favorite running back who's going to break out in 2025. Who is it? Drop your comments below. We're doing all kinds of free prizes around here nowadays. Great to have Bob Harris here. As always, Jake Ciely, what's cooking at The Athletic for you this week?
Oh, my customizable predictions just came out. So if everything you just heard, and you're like, Jake's the dumbest person in the world, I'm going to change all of his projections, you can go download them and then see how the ranks change.
Well, that's where I'm going right after this, because I do believe the first part of that story. Bob Harris, get back to work. It's June.
Do that.
No more of this hiatus stuff. We need
busy.
you. We need Mike Dempsey on air every single day. And luckily, we're going to have that 7 days a week on the NFL radio, on Sirius XM, and also on the Fantasy channel as well. Great to catch up with you. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Jake and Bob, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.